Hello and welcome to this edition to Consider This. And this is the edition on diabetes. And the document we're looking at right here is from 1979, July to August. And tissue concentrations of styrene in the heart, liver, lung, kidney, spleen, brain, and parenchymal fat show the different distribution and as the doses increases. At all exposure concentrations, the concentration of styrene in the parenchymal fat is 10 times higher than in any other organ. And the parenchymal fat is called obtuse tissue now. It's over here. And we're going to go into that in a little bit. At the lowest exposure concentration, the kidney registered the highest concentration, while a higher level of styrene is found in the liver, brain, and kidney. As the exposure level increases and these tissues are concentrated styrene greater than in the blood. Okay, so styrene, they're telling you that styrene affects the liver, brain, kidney, and your liver and your kidneys get affected by diabetes. And the same with your liver. You end up with a fatty liver, and with your kidneys, your kidneys end up failing. You go on dialysis, which We're not going that far into it. So, okay, but that was the start of it, and here we go back to June of '79. The organ with the highest concentration of radioactive per unit was the kidney, followed in order decreasing concentration by the liver and the pancreas. Well, your pancreas is what works with to keep your sugar down. The data suggested a relationship between the kidney and liver toxicity. The highest levels found also in the pancreas may bear. Now this is really important right here, because this here is supposed to be on rats, yet they say may bear some relationship to the reported increase in glucose tolerance, which is diabetes, in workers exposed to styrene. So they already knew that people working in the styrene industry had glucose tolerances, which is diabetes, back in '79. So why would the FDA continue to let, I mean, cancer is one thing, but this here is going to destroy a whole country. And we're going to get into the FDA thing a little bit later. Now, if we go over here, this is the principles and I find pancreas previous. It's not even in this document, okay? And this is the principles of assessment risks to humans from exposure from chemicals in 1999. It's not even here. So this here is useless. We'll click that off. This here is the one on styrene. And here we have styrene is readily absorbed from the gastrointestinal tract following oral administration. And this is 1976. So they know it was absorbed into the gastrointestinal tract. The pancreas is part of the gastrointestinal tract, just the same as the gallbladder. It processes our food, and that's how it keeps our sugar content down. And this here basically says the same thing as the first paper we've seen. So this here was done in 76 through 79, and it's the same people that did this here right here. The same people. And they said it bared. So from 76 to 79, they knew that we were becoming diabetics from the chemical. Okay, now we're going to take a look at this is from 2015. And they're saying that 9.4% of the population had diabetes, and that 30.3 million adults had no idea that they had diabetes. So this is 2015. Yet when I did a paper, I did this paper here in 2004, and the statistics I got there was 1 in every 8 person had diabetes. And I don't understand how they can keep the number of 9.4% of the population when Colorado is the only state, and I have all of them, and you can get to this information too. Let me see, maybe it's on this one. If you go here, if you pause this and you read it's a lot to take down, but if you go there, you can download this, and there is a spot here where you can download each state. So, and that's what I did, and this is what they look like. And Colorado has 9.8% of the population has diabetes, but the other thing is, we went back here, 1.5 million Americans are diagnosed every year. So by now, we're way above 10%. We're way above 10%. And deaths due to diabetes in 2015 were 79,535. So actually 252,000 and 806 were contributed diabetes to their death. So 1.5 million a year, and you're not even losing an eighth. It's about an eighth, maybe a little more than an eighth of the people that were already diabetics. So you're adding 1.25 million a year, every year. And so soon it's going to be, well, I heard a thing on, I don't know if it was CBS, NBC, or ABC, but they said 1 out of every 2 people have diabetes, and most people don't know it yet. So the statistics are going wild. And it's basically because we get styrene put in our food. We get styrene put in our food from our food containers, whether it be plastic or styrofoam. And the FDA is sitting there staring at the sky saying, oh, the sky is falling. I wonder why the sky is falling. So, but like I said, Colorado is at 9.8, and you look at states like West Virginia, it's 15.3, and West Virginia is one of the highest. Don't get me wrong. And it seems like the southern states are in the between the 13.2 and the 14.9 stage. Kentucky's pretty high. And the obtuse tissue is the fat. And that's the other thing. With diabetes, the styrene gets stored in the fat. And as I went through this paper here, let me get to the top of it. They found that, and because it gets stored in the fat, they call it a persistent organic pollutant. And it's really hard to lose the weight when you've got these chemicals stored in it, because it affects you, especially if you've been overwhelmed like myself. As you lose the weight, it affects you a little bit. So I got to lose weight a little at a time. When I first got contaminated, the 2 years I was unloading styrofoam containers, the first year I didn't do too bad. I only gained like 10, 12 pounds. The second year, I went from 220 pounds, which I gained to 10. So I usually stayed between 200 and 210, and I went up to 220. The second year, the day I got contaminated and they weighed me, I weighed 284 pounds. And it took time to get back down. But just before, right after my gallbladder surgery in 2009, I got down to 212, which I felt great. And then I got going back up again because of the diabetes and everything. In 2011, my kidney shut down. Because what they do is when you first get diabetes, diabetes 2, they give you oral medications. And some of the oral medications have pretty bad side effects. The metformin they gave me shut down my kidneys in 2011. So I went from 2009, I stayed down pretty low, and then as my kidneys started shutting down, I started getting the weight back. And I got up to 235. And I got a phone call one day after I'd done my blood work, and they told me stop taking all medications, and I had to get into the doctors right away. So I went in, and that's when I started jabbing myself with needles, because I was then, I'm still a type 2 diabetic, but they can't give me oral medication anymore, so I'm on 2 different kinds of insulin. And I have the long-term insulin, which I take twice a day, 12 hours apart. And then I have the short-term insulin every time I eat. And I don't eat 3 meals a day. I eat 4 meals a day, so I can keep what I eat to a minimum. And so I get jabbed 6 times a day, and I hate needles. So go figure. So getting into this diabetes thing, you don't want to be here. And getting back to the fatty tissue, The styrene is stored in the fatty tissue, so mothers pass it on in breast milk because the breast is basically fatty tissue, so that contaminates the child. 100% of the fatty tissue that's looked at, and the EPA has been tracking it. 100% of it has styrene in the fatty tissue, human fatty tissue. So this here right here is from Wikipedia, and it talks about obesity and stuff. So styrene has something to do with obesity, but to lose weight when you're a diabetic, it's very hard. It's not easy. I'm on my way back down again. After my thyroid came out, before it came out, I was 268, and now I'm down to 250. I think it's 254, and I'll get back to. I'd like to get back down to 200, but like I said, it's hard, but you got to work at it. So this is. Let me see here. So this here is the FDA, and I have to tell you again, it says tobacco products, but it's the styrene. And where does it say styrene? Oh no, this is the food additive and color additive petitions under review or held in abeyance. And here is the environmental groups: the Center for Science and Public Interest, Natural Resource Defense Council, Center for Food Safety. These are the people that want the FDA to drop styrene as a food additive. We went through this because it's cancerous. Never mind it causes diabetes, which we just seen. Here's the petition from the Styrene Information and Research Center. They want it to be dropped because styrene has been abandoned. Maybe it's been abandoned because it's cancerous, but if it's abandoned as a food additive, it should be abandoned as a food container because it leaches from the container into the food. So it's as simple as that. I hope you learned a little something about diabetes. I know I didn't go way into all the stuff, but as I said, I have all the states, and I have children in Connecticut. So if you're in Connecticut, there's 11.3 of the population have diabetes, and New York is down a little bit. New York, there's 12.5 of the adult population. Now, some of these only go on the adult population. So there can't be 10% of the population when this is only the adult population in some of the states, and diabetes costs a lot of money. You got to have your strips, which cost anywhere from $15 to $50 a month. You got to have your pen needles, depending on your copay, can run you from $5 to $25 a month. Or if you got to buy them outright, they're a little bit more. You got to have your medications, your oral medications, depending on your copay. And it's usually 2 or 3 different medications. If they put you on insulin like myself, about a year ago, my wife's insurance changed, and we didn't notify the pharmacy, and I went down to pick up my medication. And for my long-term insurance, insulin, it was $1,400 for the month. For my short-term insulin, it was $1,300 for the month. I usually pay, they have a fluctuating rate, so I pay anywhere from $35 to $70 on my copay. Each, not for both, each. So diabetes is very expensive. It's a burden on your family, because sometimes I get pretty nasty because my sugar will be either up or down, and I'd rather have it up a little bit than down, because when it gets down, I get pretty nasty, because I can't think and I can't function. When it gets too high, I can't think and I can't function. But if it's just a little high, I can maneuver a little bit. So, but so that's what people go through, and it's not pretty. It's no fun, and diabetes kills your kidneys. Which my next door neighbor, she's on dialysis. You have to go to dialysis 2 to 3 times a week, and it's for 4 to 5 hours, 2 or 3 times a week, where you sit there and read a book. You have no life. You have no quality of life. So by putting all this chemical in our food as a food additive, and by giving it to us inside the food containers, and by turning a blind eye to it, the FDA is not doing us any favors. So please call your local politician, your local representatives, county representatives, state representatives, and federal representatives, and let's get something done about this. It's your quality of life. I do this to show you that this can happen to you, and you either do something now, or you end up like millions of people on diabetes that have diabetes that really shouldn't, because we know this chemical causes diabetes, but we don't know how to fix it. So I thank you for listening. I hope you've learned something from this, and we will go into, I'm not sure what's going to be the next thing we're going to go into, but you have a good day, and thank you.